Alright, hello everyone, hope you guys are all having a wonderful day. Today we are here with another video, but before that, we are now 70 subs away from hitting 20,000 subscribers, and that is absolutely insane. So if you guys want to go ahead and smash that, I would greatly appreciate that. We will be doing a giveaway whenever I hit 20k subs, so keep in touch for that. As far as today's video though, we are going to be doing an investment video. Now, a lot of the stuff I've done in the past typically is decent investments for a month to 3 months on random stuff that you can do that I find decent at the time. However, there are other ways to invest within the game that I find very intriguing, and one of them is investing in things that could be boom or bust type items, and that's what I have for you today. So these items are going to be really weird and just kind of rely on some other things in the game that you may not think of whenever you're investing. As much as I'm trying to predict these items correctly, I also just want to be able to build your guys' skills as well and show you what I look for in each individual merch, and then from there you can decide which way you want to go about that and just critically think about it really. And here are the 6 items that I will have for you guys here today, so you guys can see the prices of all of them and really decide whether or not you'll be able to merge into some of this stuff. For the most part, I have prices pretty much around everywhere. I don't have any real high ticket items because right now a lot of the armor in game I feel like is kind of in a bubble. To a certain extent, some prices on armors are just going really high because of recent Raids 2 hype. Some of it justified, some of it not. Personally, the way I see it, Raids 2 is probably a while off right now, even though we're getting a lot of info on it. It's still going to be a while, and I don't think that these prices can continue for that much longer, so for the most part, we are going to be looking at items that aren't going to be too much affected by Raids 2, but still have a lot of potential going forward to be improved in some ways. So you can break up the 6 items that I have here today into 2 different categories, the first one being a revitalized content section. Really, these are just going to be items that I feel like right now don't have a huge use in the game, but going forward, whether it is due to an update or just meta changes within the game, I feel as if these items may actually go up. Along with that, the second category that we have is dying PVM content drops. Kind of a long name, but ultimately what this means is I think going forward, raids will be done less because Raids 2 will just be more popular. There will still be demand for the Raids 1 drops, and so I think that some of the items from Raids 1 could definitely go up in price going forward. Some things to remember before investing into any items though is the first being liquidity. You want to make sure that you have items that you're comfortable selling off at a slow rate. If you absolutely might need cash back at any moment notice, you don't want to buy items with low volume on the GE. In addition to that, high risk, high reward. If you don't have a lot of money to risk, then you're not going to want to go with something that is very dangerous. In addition to that, some of these items will have expected hold times, depending on the logic as to why these items would rise in price. In addition to that, max loss is obviously something to take into account. Some items that I will mention in this video have theoretical floors where they really can't go under a certain price, so you're not risking as much. With all that said though, let's go ahead and get on into the first item. So the first item we have here are Treasonous Rings. Now the current price of a ring is 1.3 mil. Now as little as a few months ago, you could have gotten these for 500k. However, after a few updates such as Adamant Rune Dragons, and along with that, the new Raids hype, basically they've climbed to 1.3 mil. Now originally when the Raids hype came out, they were up to 2 mil. And as far as what I see for a potential price going forward, I see around 2.5 plus. I mean, really, there will be a lot of pluses in this video because I'm not saying 2.5 is the max that this thing could ever reach. If the ring itself does become really good at a certain boss in the game, it could easily go up, 4 to 8 mil, somewhere in there. But going forward, the reason I think that this is actually going to have some use is even right now, there still aren't a ton of places in the game where this is absolutely the best ring. In addition to that, Venenatus and Callisto in the Wilderness aren't as good of bosses as they once were. Obviously, they're dropping the same stuff, but as better methods come into the game, such as Vorkath and stuff like that, less people are going to be inclined to do wildy bosses, and thus the supply of Treasonous Rings going forward are more than likely going to drop as well. The combination of the potential meta change and the drop in Treasonous Ring supply is really the reason I think that this merch could work out. The risk is a 3.5 because while they were 500k in the past, I don't think they'll ever dip that low again. I'd say the floor for this item is potentially 8 to 900k, and you can make upwards of 2.5 mil in the future depending on what goes on. The second item we have is the Arcane Prayer Scroll. Now currently it lies at 11 mil. Not too bad when you consider the floor for this item over the past few months has been close to 10 mil. The price of the scroll has steadily declined throughout most of the year. However, recently it's pretty much middled out. As far as the potential price going forward, I could easily see 15 mil plus for this item, and that's for a few reasons I'll get into. The risk on this item, I'd say is about a 3, maybe even less, because I mean, the prayer is just really helpful, and to be able to get it only for 10 mil is just pretty much a bargain. especially when you consider that it's an item that comes in through raids. As far as the reasons I think that the Arcane Prayer Scroll could go up, I'll mention this throughout the video, but I think Mage has kind of been a combat style that needs a little bit more focus in regards to like actual PVM. I think Jagex is going to have a huge focus on that going forward because it's just a really fun skill to work with. We've seen them in RS3 try to implement Mage a lot more towards the end, and I think they'll do that with old school Runescape as well, making Mage a little better over time. Now, in addition to this, I believe a lack of supply could be a thing as well, for a couple different reasons here. One being whenever Raids 2 comes out, Raids 1 won't be done as much. I've already stated this before, but if we use that logic, it makes sense that the Arcane Prayer Scroll would go up in price. And in addition to this, whenever you look at the Dexterous Prayer Scroll price range over the last year, you'll see a couple of really big spikes, and that's whenever something happens regarding range. Now, the Arcane Prayer Scroll hasn't had the same luck, which is why I think in the future it potentially could. The reason those price peaks on the Dexterous Prayer Scroll are important is because since there's not a ton of them on the market, in times where these scrolls are in high demand, those are the prices and the ranges that you can get for these items. So it's an item that I think is very good for a long-term investment, and on top of that, sometimes it just peaks and you can actually sell off really high. Moving on to the Din's Bulwark. Now, this is one that is just going to be way more risky than anything else I have here today. Personally, I'm someone that doesn't like to deal in risk as much whenever I do investments, just because a big hit really hurts. Currently, the price of the Bulwark is about 18.5 mil, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. It's been very volatile over the last few days. Mostly what I would imagine is due to the raids hype. However, going forward, I see the potential price of this actually being 30 mil plus. It just seems like an item that is due for an update. Now, the risk is 7.5, and personally I said I wouldn't invest into this, but it's something you can definitely look towards. The main reason being, it needs a use. It screams for something to be good at. The Bulwark up until this point is only used for a few things, pretty much gathering monsters and tanking PvPers. I think whenever Jagex introduced this item, they meant to have a lot more uses in regards to PVM, but people don't even take it anywhere to tank. They just take whatever type of shield they can get their hands on, maybe a DFS and a whip, and they go there with that anyways, and it ends up working out better. Personally, I think going forward, Jagex is going to introduce something where you pretty much need a tank type of person. Having a tank character would be pretty interesting, and I think it's something they could implement, and if they do, this is going to be the best shield, obviously. This means that the price of this, while I do say is 30 mil potentially, it could be way higher, depending on what type of monster they introduce this on. In addition to that, I've already explained it. It's dropped from raids. Raids are going to be done less. I don't need to go over it again. Same thing applies here. The next item coming up is Pegasusion Crystals. Now, as far as the current price, it is 130k, and what I think it can get up to pretty easily, honestly, is 350k. Now, there's a couple reasons why this would be. As far as a long-term investment, these could be decent because whenever you think about it, there's no reason that a Pegasusion Crystal should be worth 130k. It is a crystal drop, which does actually really help on the Ranger boots. However, there's just so many of them in the game, and Ranger boots are already so expensive that the price of them is just basically nothing. Now, the reasons this could change is just because people start to do less Cerberus, or because people start to realize the Pegasusion Crystal value. However, the main reason I actually like Pegasusion Crystals just as a merch in general and an investment that you should always buy whenever they're around 120k is because sometimes you can make money turning Ranger boots into Pegasusion boots. The way you do this is obviously using a Pegasusion Crystal, and the thing to note here is there's not a lot of people selling Pegasusion Crystals at any time. However, Ranger boots and Pegasusions are sold way more frequently, and so whenever there's a margin between Rangers and Pegasusions that's profitable, people will just insta-buy and insta-sell, causing all the Pegasusion Crystals to go off the market that are anywhere between maybe 100 to 300k. So here's a graph of the Pegasusion Crystals over the last month with a huge peak of close to 400k. They were actually lower than 100k earlier this month, and the price of 130k, which I gave you guys in that graphic, is actually wrong right now. As of the time of making this video, they've actually shot up to 220k. I wouldn't recommend investing into them at that point. However, this looks to be just a small daily spike, which they tend to do. So don't buy now, buy whenever they drop again. Next up, we have the Sears Ring. Yet again, another magic item. The current price of the Sears Ring is 390k. The potential price I see going forward is close to 700k, and the risk I see on this item is probably close to a 4. I was thinking 3.5, but when I compared it to the other 3.5s I gave out, I thought it was a little more risky. The overall floor I see for Sears Ring is about 250, 260k in the short run. Long term, if they have no use, like 3 to 4 years, I mean, DKs could just become overly camped and they could be like 20k. But looking in the next couple years, I'd say 250k is probably the low. The potential price I see these going up to is probably 700k. The Sears Ring kind of have a combination of the Arcane Prayer Scroll and the Pegasusion built into them, in the sense that if the Arcane Prayer Scroll ever goes up, more than likely Sears Rings will too, because they'll be needed at the same time. And along with that, not a lot of Sears Rings are bought and sold just because it's the least common ring to use. So if there ever is an increase in demand, say for something that is implemented into a game on a day of update, these things can actually shoot through the roof. Those are 2 reasons I like this item. In addition to that, if you compare it to the other rings that are dropped from DKs, the Archer's Ring and the Berserker Ring, it can show you what the price of these could be if the item was useful in game. What we know about the Archers and the Berserker Ring is that they are very commonly used in game, thus they are upwards or close to 4 mil. Now a Magic Ring can't sadly reach those prices because just the way Magic works, the attack bonuses on Magic is typically a lot less important than stuff with range and melee involved. However, the ring definitely could go higher than 700k. Now finally, finding the next Kraken Tentacle. This has always been something I found really interesting. It started way back in the day with climbing boots, I think is the first real time I can remember this. And what this is it's an item that doesn't have a use and there are a ton of in-game. And Jagex just kind of looks to revitalize old content all the time because it's something we as a community say we enjoy, so they do it. Here we can see the price of Kraken Tentacles going from 130k to 900k, solely because they actually had a real purpose. So if Jagex ever does that to an item, you know you are bound to make a lot of money, and with something like Kraken Tentacles, there isn't a ton of risk. I mean, really, they could go down maybe 20 to 30k, but the potential reward is so high that it might be worth it. An item I have like that here for you guys today is the Occult Necklace. Now, the current price of this necklace is 530k, and what I reasonably think you could get in the future without an update even being put into the game is 850k. It's a very useful item that not a ton of people do because just Thermonuclear Smoke Devil doesn't make a ton of money, so people typically don't do it that much. Thus, Occult Necklaces, if given the right circumstance, can definitely go up. The risk on them I see is about a 3.5. They could go down close to 400k, but the upside on them is just so much that I think they're worth it. The huge plus here is, on top of the fact that they're a decent investment just in general, is I think they have a real possibility of getting an attachment for an upgrade. When you look back at it, Jagex has had a lot of Slayer items, just high volume Slayer items that they try to make valuable whenever they do these attachment type updates. The Occult Necklace is something I've seen so many come into the game, and they are used relatively frequently. I think that they are a very good prospect for getting a necklace attachment for the new best necklace. Now, personally, that's just something that I see. I think they show all of the signs of all of the previous ones, and I'm not saying for certain that they will. Obviously, the potential upside here, if they are introduced into the game, is so high that this isn't going to be a 50-50 merch. Like, it's not a 50% chance that they do put this as an update into the game, slash 50% chance that they don't. Really, it's a lot more smaller than that, but the potential payoff here is so much more than doubling your money. So now I'm going to talk about which items I like the most out of these. Now, every time I do this, people are like, well, you're going to give away the ones you're invested in and then try to profit off of. I don't invest into any of this stuff because it's just scummy to me. It's not the way I want to go ahead and make money. I'd rather just play the game. But here are my personal favorite items 1 through 6. So we'll start on the left-hand side. The top is my favorite, the bottom is my least favorite. So going from top to bottom, the Arcane Prayer Scroll is number 1 for me. Personally, I think at any point during the next 5 to 6 months, you're going to have some point where you can get out for 3 to 4 mil profit. And to me, it seems pretty much guaranteed. So I like that item a lot. The Pegasusion Crystals as well, they're very hard to buy a ton of, but if you could, they're a guaranteed profit as well. Occult Necklaces, I like this because they are just such a good investment. I mean, the odds of them hitting, I feel like, is obviously small, but the potential return is so much higher. So I like those as well. The Din's Bulwark, I would have liked a lot more, around 10 to 12 mil before it started to actually shoot up because of rates too hype. Personally, it's a little bit more risky right now. While I do still like it, it's not better than any of the other 3 I've mentioned. The bottom 2 we have are both rings. Maybe that's just a personal preference. I don't like merching into those as much because it's just not as fun. There are instant updates that could change those prices, but for the most part, you'll probably see them as mostly gradual, and that's not very intriguing to me. Now, I do like the Treasonous Ring a lot more because DKs are very heavily camped, and I think will be going forward. Treasonous Rings and Venenatus itself might not be as much. and for that reason, I put the Treasonous Ring above the Sears while still liking both of them. So that will be it for me today. Hopefully you guys got a lot of info out of it, and maybe you even came away with an item that you would like to invest in. Personally, I find these a lot of fun because it's just really enjoyable to try to predict how the game's going to change and how the markets will as well. If you guys did enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like. On top of that, as I said earlier, closing in on 20k subs. I can only thank you guys for that, but if you guys want to thank me a little bit and hit that sub button, obviously hugely appreciate it. And finally, if you guys have anything you want to tell me down below in the comments, feel free to. Could be a video suggestion or even just a little mundane comment. Either one to me is going to be amazing. And with that said, yeah, that's going to be it for me today. Hopefully you guys have a wonderful day though, and peace.